The music box sat on the corner of the war table, a small, ridiculous thing that had no business surviving 17 campaigns. Kessera had kept it because it played in a key that matched the frequency of her Menez resting hum, and because no one had ever been bold enough to suggest she remove it. It turned in slow rotations, the tiny comb picking out a melody older than the Fenarisol's first recorded sun crossing, and the sound filled the war room the way warmth fills a room before you notice you were cold. The holo maps rotated above the table in blue silence. The breathing of her officers was tight and controlled, and the servant stood 3 paces behind her left shoulder, exactly where she had placed him, holding the folded collar cloth with both hands as though it were a thing that required care. It did not require care. He simply treated everything as though it did. Kessera's menere ran gold at full brightness, solar warm and wide along her shoulders, the way it always burned in the hour before a decision was made. Her officers read it the way junior soldiers read weather. When the menere spread wide and amber, she was thinking. When it pulled close to her neck, something had gone wrong. They had learned, over years, not to cause the second thing. The savant had not learned this lesson because no one had told him, and because he seemed, in general, constitutionally incapable of behaving as though anything in her orbit was frightening. He had rearranged her collar cloth twice already this morning without being asked. The first time, Kessera had almost reprimanded him. The second time, she had let it happen. She did not examine why. The holo maps pulsed with new data from the outer corridor sensors. Something was moving in the lower passages. Kessera noted it, filed it, returned to the tactical briefing. The music box played on. She had described the servant to her second-in-command the previous cycle, when Veldra had asked, in a tone that was entirely too knowing, why a war matron kept a personal attendant in a war room at all. Kessera had kept her voice flat. "He fell asleep in my war council," she said. Twice. She let the pause carry the implication that this was a statement of contempt. Veldra had nodded with a face that suggested she believed none of it. The truth, which Kessera did not examine, was that the servant's particular talent for existing in high-stakes rooms without absorbing any of their tension was something she had come to find structurally useful. He did not pace. He did not check the door. He stood where she placed him, and he breathed at a pace that matched the music box. And when the briefings ran long and the hololight turned everything cold and blue, his stillness behind her left shoulder was the one fixed point that did not vibrate with the frequency of impending judgment. "He holds my hand," she had told herself once, with the private clinical precision of someone cataloging a medical symptom. "He holds my hand when I return from the field, and he does not ask what happened, and I have not told him to stop. Here is what science knows about a body under sustained maximum exertion. Lactic acid builds in the muscle tissue and the body reaches its threshold in 30 to 90 seconds. After that, strength fails. After that, the grip loosens. After that, the creature being held releases." Kessera had built entire battle strategies around that biological truth. She had never thought to apply it to a being who was not a soldier, who had no formal training, who carried linens and collar cloth and stood 3 paces back. She thought about it now only because the briefing had mentioned, in a footnote no one else seemed alarmed by, that the lower corridor anomaly was not a malfunction. It was growing. There is a specific kind of knowing that arrives before the mind has finished processing. Kessera felt it first in her menere, which pulled inward 2 degrees without her permission, then in the sound of the music box, which had not changed, the comb still moving, the melody still threading through the room, but which somehow felt slower. She did not look at it. She did not need to. She had kept it long enough to know when its rhythm was true and when her own perception was distorting it. Something was wrong. Not with the maps. Not with the corridor. With the room itself. With the particular quality of the silence that existed in the spaces between her officers' careful breathing. A silence that had a shape it hadn't had before. And the servant behind her left shoulder, who was always still, was very still now in a way that was different from his usual stillness. She could not have explained the difference to Veldra. She could not have logged it in a tactical report. But 23 years of reading rooms before battles told her that the quality of a person's stillness changes when they are no longer merely present, when they are waiting. If you have ever watched a creature decide, You know there is a moment just before the decision, not the decision itself, but the moment when the body commits to what the mind has already chosen. Kessler had seen it in opponents across 30 engagements. She had never seen it in someone holding collar cloth. The Rift parasite came through the West Corridor seal at 0340 hours, and it came the way all truly dangerous things come. Not dramatically, but practically, with a business-like efficiency of something that has done this before and expects to do it again. It was 3 meters of shifting membrane and reaching appendages, and it did not have eyes in any arrangement Kessler's biology recognized as eyes, but it had something that functioned like hunger, and it had located the war room's highest concentration of neural output with the accuracy of an instrument designed for exactly this task. The holo maps fractured where its field touched them. 2 of her officers went down without a sound. Not dead, she registered, but suddenly absent from themselves in a way that looked like sleep and was something much worse. The 3rd officer, Veldra, pressed herself against the far wall and was doing the correct thing, which was not moving, because movement attracted the parasite's attention, and Kessera had trained her well. Kessera's menere went flat. Not curled, not yet, but pressed close and dim, the warmth draining out of it the way warmth drains from a room when the fire is pulled from its source. She had her sidearm. She had 17 years of command instinct. She had, in this moment, neither the range nor the angle to do anything useful with either, because the parasite was between her and every exit, and it was expanding, and the music box on the corner of the war table had slowed. She heard it. 1 rotation, then half, then a dragging halt. His fingers found the table edge and gripped. She had been watching the parasite. She turned because she heard the sound of something changing, not a sound that registered on her ears, but on some older sense, some evolutionary inheritance from the Phenarisol's pre-civilization millennia, when knowing the difference between prey and predator was not an intellectual exercise. She turned, and the servant was no longer the servant. He was still standing in the same position. He had not moved his feet, but his eyes, which she had catalogued as brown in the particular way she catalogued all his unremarkable physical characteristics, had gone white. Not pale, not wide. White, from edge to edge, the color of a thing that has been pressurized past the point of pretending. Nobody told her that he had spent 11 years in a suppression collar. Nobody told her what a telepathic dampener cost a person who was born reading every mind in a 3-kilometer radius, and what it cost them to stop. Nobody told her because nobody had thought to, because he was a servant, and servants do not have histories, only functions. He was currently functioning. The Rift parasite shrieked, not with sound, with frequency, with a specific telepathic register that the species used to disable higher cognition in its prey, the wave that had already taken her 2 officers and would have taken her if she had not been wearing the standard command band. The wave hit the servant. He turned his head toward it the way a person turns toward a noise that has been annoying them for some time and has finally reached the level of justification for response. He crossed the room in 4 steps. He strangled it with chain, not a weapon, not a tactical apparatus. The decorative chain that secured the holomap anchor to the table ring, the one that had been purely ornamental for the 12 years Kessera had stood in this room, which the servant had apparently noticed and assessed and decided was sufficient for the purpose of strangling a Rift parasite. The lactic acid threshold that governs maximum burst is 30 to 90 seconds. He did not reach 30. He did not need to. He was not working with muscle. He was working with something that did not fatigue the way muscle fatigues, something that the suppression collar had been containing for 11 years and that was now, quite efficiently, not contained. The parasite collapsed inward. It made a sound like a decision being reversed. The servant straightened. His eyes were still white. One of the ornamental links had cut his palm, and blood moved across the back of his hand in a line that Kessera could not stop looking at. He turned to face her, and she did not move, and her menere, which had gone flat and dim, did not brighten the way it brightened when battle ended. It did something else. Something she had no entry for in 23 years of self-knowledge. He held the assassin's throat. The words arrived in her mind with the flatness of a thing being corrected in a ledger. She had said, "He holds my hand." She had catalogued it as small and manageable and beneath examination. The ledger did not agree. "Your doctor," said Rowan Hale, looking at the blood on his palm with the mild assessment of a man calculating minor inconvenience, "is going to need a doctor." Kessler's manner did not care. It did not go fetal. Her fear response, which she had always trusted as the most honest signal her body produced, looked at the white-eyed man standing in the wreckage of a rift parasite's ambitions and simply declined to fire. She did not know what that meant. She suspected it meant something. If you have watched a war matron stand very still at the edge of everything she thought she understood, you will know this particular quality of stillness. You will recognize it. You will want to know what she does next. And so will she. The music box sat open and silent on the corner of the war table. He touched her face. She didn't pull away. Later, when she was required to write the incident report, Kessler would spend 4 minutes on the final line. She would delete 7 versions. The version she kept said only, "The monster vanished. The man who reads to me returned."